Welcome. This is Professor Mack. I'd just like to talk to you briefly about some of the things you might have questions about. Well, in class, I demonstrated how to actually segment or separate your data so that you can actually do your analysis. In this particular case, I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done in order to arrive at this point where we have non-diversity hires versus diversity hires. And we have the salary for each one of these particular groups and the distinction between the non-diversity bonus versus the diversity bonus. So we'll go back to my original data. You can clearly see that we have these particular columns in the main spreadsheet. This is a slightly different data set that I also use as part of this class for demonstration purposes because I want to give you something a little bit different so you can apply it in the same way to the data you're using now. So here you can see that we have like diversity hire, we have salary, we have bonus. The distinction between diversity hire and individual who is not a diversity hire is that one is coded as 0 and one is coded as 1. In this particular case, diversity hires are coded as 1. Individuals who have a 0 are non-diversity hires. So I'd like to just select this data. I would copy this data as we always do. And then you can see that I pasted this data here. Okay. So the question is, how did I arrive at these particular places as far as the documentation is concerned, or as far as the actual location of the data is concerned? Essentially, what I want to do is, what you want to do is also look at your diversity hire data, and let's say we want to filter based on those who are not diversity hires. Okay, so what that ends up doing is gives you all the individuals who are not diversity hires. You're simply going to take that data and you're going to copy and paste. All right, so you would copy and essentially paste the data here. I won't do it because I already have these column heads changed, but the data would in fact look something like this. Paste values. This was your data. I renamed the column headings because I wanted to be certain of the type of data that was in these particular columns. So this is non-diversity hire, coded 0, non-diversity salary, and non-diversity bonus percentage. Let me remove this. Likewise, you would do the same thing with your diversity hires. Simply deselect 0, no blanks, select 1, and this will give you your list of diversity hires. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to copy and paste. There are a smaller population here, and you can basically undo this, paste your values. So in this particular case, as you can see, I pasted over here, but I renamed the columns to diversity hire, diversity salary, and diversity bonus percentage. So now that I've done that, what should I do next? Well, there's two things I can do. I can still do all of my analysis on the overall group. So let's say I'm going to do an analysis on this, on the entire population of employees, whether they're diversity hire or not. I can now actually use the analytics pack, for instance, data analysis, and let's do descriptive statistics. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to do the analysis from A1 to A85, B85, because it incorporates, actually, let's not even do that. I just want to do the salaries. So it's going to be B1. Let's do this. I'm just doing the salaries. So I only need to select the salary column. clear this out. Let's try this again. Input range is going to just be B. Okay. And the output range, I'm going to make it F. Let's make it E. E1. Great. I want to do the summary statistics as well. And I run my descriptive analytics on that particular column, and I'm looking at salary. Given we're talking about salary, one of the things you might want to do is also format it as such. Right? So it makes it easier for you to understand that this is actually salary. Right? It's talking about money. And it's much easier for you to interpret or understand if you think of it in that way. So let's also do the median. So in this particular case, it's saying the average salary is like $64,920. It's saying as far as the median, it's the number that's right in the middle of all these numbers. From the lowest number to the highest number, it's going to be 60,000. That means 60,000 is not the same as the mean. The mean is 4,000, probably about $4,000 more, a little less than that. But that means they do not match up, and therefore there is a difference between the mean and the median, which means your data is going to be slightly skewed. Okay. The standard deviation, let's do these as well. It's $18,000 variation between all of your data points or all of your currencies, rather all of your salaries. And then the sample variance adds up to $341 million in variance. That means there's a lot of variation in these salaries. So it's looking at all the differences between first salary, second salary, first salary and third salary, second salary and third salary, et cetera, et cetera. So it actually is calculating all the variation between these, which means there's a lot of variation in the salaries to be understood. And then you have a minimum and maximum salary. So this is the minimum salary that's in this group. Here's the maximum salary that's in this group, which is $148,999 or approximately $149,000. And then the sum basically adds up all of the salaries, and that totals a little over $5.4 million. And then this is the count. It just tells you how many salaries are included in this data. So that is that. Now, next thing I want to do is I'm going to do a comparison of the salaries, let's say, between the non-diversity salaries and diversity salaries. The easiest thing to do for that is it's actually essentially, let's take these two, the salary here, paste the values, and let's take the salaries of the non-diversity hires. Let's paste those here. Insert a column or two to give me some room. So now I'm just going to do a comparison between the actual salaries between those who are diversity hires versus those who are not diversity hires. And I'm going to put the comparison over here. Okay, so now we're going to follow the same steps we did before. So go to data, data analysis, descriptive statistics. Select OK. Okay, what data am I interested in? I'm not interested in this data, all data in column B. I'm interested in this data in P and Q. So I need to select these two columns. And I'm doing the summary statistics, but I'm changing the location also. So always remember to move the data if you're going to put it in a new place. Select that output range and change the output range. So all my data should appear here for descriptive analytics or just descriptive statistics. Select OK. And here I am now, again, with output that's comparing or showing you at least the two statistics from both the diversity and non-diversity. So I look at it this way. Here, you have your non-diversity. Sometimes I like to color code things just to visualize it easier. Let's see, let's just fill it in with a light color. And at least that separates the two. Okay. Here's the other associated with this here. Okay, so non-diversity. Let's bold that. Here's my diversity. I'm going to bold that. Let's do the same thing with most of these. We are going to make them currencies. In this particular case, because we're dealing with money, we don't have to keep the zeros. We can get rid of the zeros if we choose. Or should I say those points behind the decimal point rather. Here, range, minimum, maximum, the sum. Do the same here. Currency. Move those zeros. And again, I'm doing that because it makes it easier to talk about it. And it really brings home that what you're talking about in this particular case is money or salary or currency. So here we can see that the salary mean for those who are diversity hires versus those who are non-diversity hires, there is a difference. Actually, the diversity salary is about $7,000 more. Should I say about $6,100 more than those who are non-diversity. The average salary, however, the median salary, however, is slightly different in that the median salary, the salary that's in the middle for non-diversity hires is at $61,000 versus those who are diversity hires at $60,000. To me, that indicates that even though the average salary might be greater for the diversity hires, the salary that's in the midpoint between the upper and lower salaries for non-diversity hires is slightly above that of those who are diversity hires. That could or could not mean anything, but at this point we don't have an idea. We just have to take a closer look at some other variables that might show that. Again, when we look at the range of the salaries, we can clearly see that the range for the diversity hires is a difference of $100,000 versus $74,000 for those who are not diversity hires. The min and max value is also different. Clearly, you can see that the minimum value for diversity hire and the maximum value for diversity hire is higher than that individual who is not a diversity hire. I think you'd have to look a little bit closer at this as well because it really depends on the jobs or positions they take or have taken or the roles that they're in. They might be higher paid positions. That would be the question to ask. And so again, this is the point by which we can start to ask questions. Not only that, but when we look at the the number of actual individuals within these two particular groups, we can see that in the diversity salary, there are only 14 particular individuals who were diversity hires versus 70 individuals who were not diversity hires. So that's how you would actually use this data to do your analysis, one, on the overall group, which is the first thing that I did. You might want to format some of the data so that it makes sense to you, if particularly if it's a such thing as a salary. You can highlight things that stand out to you. You can color code things so that it'll bring something familiar to you when you want to think about it. The things that are important to you, you want to highlight those. For instance, you have a difference between one individual salary in one group, whether it be whether a diversity hire or non-diversity hire. It could be females high salary versus male salaries, and it could be a myriad of other things like race and age, right? So it applies the same way. So if I were doing age, I would have a column based in column A that would be age of the employee, and then I would have their salary as the second column B. I would do my first analysis on all the salaries so I could see what the analytics tells me on the overall population, and then I would separate them out into their different age groups, maybe. Like you would have like 10 to 20 years old, well, you would have like, let's say 18 to 30 years old, 31 to 50 years old, whatever that breakout makes sense to you. You could do it that way, but that would take a lot of effort because you are talking about ages that can be from 18 to 80, let's say, for as an example. So you would have a lot of data in that form of fashion. Anyway, that's how you would look at your analysis and look at the data from different perspectives. So, hope that helps. And we'll come back to something else for some clarification as well.